sorry. I am Jessica Lockhart, the director of the International Institute of Humanology. We seem to be having some problems with that connection. James, our chairman, seems to be frozen on the screen. We are asking you to please forgive us for these technical difficulties. You know what happens when you're doing things live. So what we're going to do is we're going to proceed and we're going to continue with the panel today. But we're going to ask James to join me because we happen to be in the same premises. We're going to ask James to come here to share the screen with me, and we will be taking turns in talking and addressing you all so we can proceed with the panel without any more interference. Sorry, as you may know, we are in Panama, and unfortunately, sometimes the connection here is not as good as we would expect it to be, and that's why we're having some difficulties, some trouble today. Well, but we're just going to go ahead and we're going to continue with this panel. We're going to introduce the 4 panelists that are going to be working or participating or answering our questions here today. It's a great, fantastic honor for me to introduce them, even though this was what our chairman was supposed to be doing, but I will do the honors in the meantime. So let me introduce first Dr. Sydney Kataria. Dr. Sydney Kataria, and I'm going to share the screen with them all so you can see them on the screen now. So Dr. Sydney Kataria is American from the US, but is currently in Mumbai, India. She is a neuroscientist and a really active defender of human beings with whom I've had the pleasure of collaborating these last years. She is a scientist, she is an entrepreneur, and she has recently been appointed CEO of a very interesting project. Simmy, you can tell us all about it in a minute. So please tell us very briefly who you are to give us some further details.
Thank you, Jessica. That was a lovely introduction. So I am Dr. Sydney Kataria, and most recently I have joined the MEXCEL group, which is an online executive management program, management education right now, because we know we are in COVID and we are doing a lot of online education. So I've just joined them most recently, and we have launched various programs. The most flagship programs are the Executive Management Development Programs. So that's a little bit about me. Hand over to Jessica. Thank you, Jessica, for having me here.
Thank you so much, Simmy. It's great, and congratulations again. Let me then introduce the next speaker, and then I will give the microphone to James, who finally made it to this office, and he will be directing this part of the panel. Dr. Kumar Iyer, you will correct me on that pronunciation, please, is in the steel industry and sustainable business. He is a professional from India who has been devoted these last years to really making the idea of sustainability widespread and the thing and the it for everyone. Am I right, Dr. Iyer? Kumar, how would I pronounce your last name?
Iyer.
Iyer, Dr. Iyer. So Kumar, please tell us a couple details more about you.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica, for the invitation and for the wonderful introduction. As Jessica mentioned, I am very passionate about sustainability, and I look at sustainability holistically, which means along with the environment, we also look at human relations, human rights, and temper it with principles so that profit does not become the overriding motive in any enterprise. So it's people, planet, profits, along with principles. That's what I'm advocating right now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kumar Iyer. Thank you for being here with us today. It is such an honor. May I introduce our third panelist with us today. He is coming all the way from the United States. He is Larry Melton. Larry Melton is a retired college history teacher with diverse interests. Thank you so much, Larry, for being here with us today. It is such a pleasure.
You know, my family and students have been wanting to mute me for a long time. So you have a wonderful capacity there. It's an honor to be participating this morning with this wonderful panel. It's such a pleasure to meet each one of you. I'm anxious to hear your responses to the questions, and I'm looking forward to the outcome of our discussion. I have many other interests besides history, and since I'm homebound and disabled, I find the internet is my portal to the rest of the world, so I really appreciate this opportunity. Look forward to visiting with you all later. Thank you, James.
Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you, thank you. And then finally, let me introduce, who I don't really think needs an introduction, Jessica J. Lockhart, our last panelist. She is the director of the International Institute of Humanology. She's an author, she is a motivational speaker, she is a woman of many trades. So thank you so much for being here with us today. It is a wonderful pleasure to have you here as well. Thank you very much.
And given this funny situation we have here today in the office, here I am again. Well, we're talking about lessons that helped us thrive. There you go. Here we have a very practical lesson. Whenever something happens, you can choose to be paralyzed or you can choose to find a solution. That's exactly what we did right now. There was this inconvenience, there was this problem. We were really stuck with the internet and we couldn't continue because everything got stuck. Well, we found a solution. It's fantastic to be here. I love being in this panel with other three fantastic speakers. And I invite everybody to really share their opinions, their ideas, and their questions and participate actively. So James, I give the floor to you all over again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jessica. Okay, so now that everyone got to know our wonderful panelists, let's move on to the question section. May I remind all of our followers, all of our audience, our listeners, that if you have any questions for our panelists that you would like for them to answer, please do comment on the comment section of this wonderful Facebook Live, and we will surely answer all of the questions as long as we've got enough time. So please, like I said, if you have any questions, do comment down below so that we can get to them. Okay, so let us begin. So in today's topic, lessons learned to help us thrive. The first question that we have for our panelists is, the world is living a situation like none before. Many people are suffering tremendously while others are thriving. What would you say makes the difference? What could people do to help themselves? Dr. Sydney Kataria, if you could please be so kind as to answer the question.
Thank you. That's a very interesting question. Yes, a lot of people are, in this mode of, trying to thrive. What is it that really makes, thriving easily is really, being a neurobehavioral scientist, I'm always talking about psychology. And now we talk about positive psychology. So what is positive psychology? There are really three levels of positive psychology. One is subjective, what we are. One is individual, what we project to the world, what we believe in, our traits, etc. That's individual, subjective. The second is, what is a group level? Who do you belong to? What is that? What kind of thought process, the commonality belongs to the group. So that is the subject, the group level. So having said that, what really makes it different, what makes you really, really thrive in these times is positive psychology. And how do you achieve that? Is fundamentally the joy of the 4 techniques ready to achieve is to reverse your focus on negative to positive. It's like, for example, if the glass is full, is it empty or is it full? So how you see it is your perception. So that's the first thing you've got to think about, is to reverse your negativity to positivity. That's the first thing. The second is to really build strategies to foster hope. Fundamentally, we all live and thrive on hope, that the future will be bright for us. That's the second thing we've got to think about, is that it's going to change. There is going to be a better tomorrow. And finally, the other things that really, really, make us thrive is really to develop a language of strength. I will make it. I am making it. I'm positive about this. So basically a strength mechanism. There are 3 strategies in order to thrive. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Simmy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The same question for Kumar Iyer. Oh.
Yeah. Thank you, James. As Simmy said, one of the key ingredients which separates the thrivers from those who are not actively thriving is the positive mentality. The world is a reflection of what you put out. So if you project negative energy, it's going to attract all the negativity in the world towards you, and that keeps getting you down. At the same time, the more positivity you project into the universe, the more positivity comes back to you. So those who emit an aura of positivity are the ones who are actually thriving. So this again comes back to what Simmy talked about. I'm not a neuroscientist, so I don't know the technical jargon there, but in my own words, if you are living a principled life, if you're doing good by others, if you are not aiming to possess what is not rightly yours, you will be doing well. So, I mean, you have to cut down on the greed factor. So going forward, how can we come out of these trying times? First is develop a culture, develop a habit of honesty. I mean, if there was a saying that I listened to, that I was told long back. If I lie, I have to remember it for all times. If I speak the truth, then I don't need to remember it because truth is eternal. So if you're honest, you clear the clutter in your life. Be honest, be transparent in all your transactions. You will continue to thrive. The second thing is look for the good in people. Today, we are living in a society where biases run large. So what I would say is there must be something in everyone which is good. Look for the one good in every person and build on that good. You will find that you start attracting the world towards you because you're not a critic, but you're a supporter. So the minute you become a supporter, you become a thriver. So start looking for good in others and people will look for good in you. And then you grow as a team. And finally, the third thing which I say is be realistic in what you want to achieve. Don't run after dreams which call for dubious means for achieving them. If you have to sacrifice your principles, if you have to make compromises, that goal is not worth achieving. So look for the good, look for what is right, and live life according to your principles. That's the mantra going forward for thriving in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Kumar. Very, very powerful words. I hadn't thought of it that way. Thank you. Larry, same question.
Okay, I have it's different perspective as a layman. I very much appreciate the doctor's perspectives. I have a little different view of thriving. My father was a remarkable man, came up through some rather difficult times. And his advice to me was to be nimble. He loved to use that word. To him, it meant just what has happened this morning, the ability to face some kind of problem and immediately move on to what he would call plan B. Flexibility in our lives and not be so fixed in what we do. That was his answer to how one would thrive. I met a gentleman that I wrote about last week in the magazine, Dr. B.W. McGraw, and he gave me some advice as a young man. He said, be ready to meet an old man on the walk of life and realize that what that old man is what you have made him. That has had quite an impression on me. And now that I'm that old man that I was supposed to meet some 60 years or more ago, I've realized how important Mr. McGraw's words were to prepare for the future. And then I would certainly second what the others have said about the importance of being optimistic. Optimism in my life is something that's been very difficult for me to come by, for I suffered severe mental health problems for most of my life with a severe degree of bipolarity. It was an inherited condition, and I spent much of my early and mid years fighting the great separations between depression and manic behavior. I won't go into great detail about what has leveled out my mental health considerably, except to say that for the last 15 or 16 years, I've known what it's like to live a rather level life. And as a result, my optimism, my positive thinking, my joy of life has been considerably changed as a result. I have found that I've had to be nimble, especially when I had mental health problems, that I've had to be able to think positively, even when it was very difficult. And I have certainly had to prepare for this existence that I now have. Those would be my three elements of thriving. Be nimble, prepare, and stay positive, stay optimistic about life. James.
Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you for that answer. And thank you for sharing your life story with us and the audience. Thank you very much for that. Jessica, same question.
Here I pop up again. Hello, everyone. Okay, so what makes some people thrive and others not?
Yeah.
As you may know, you may or you may not, I am the creator of a method called Optimism coaching. So, of course, I agree with everything that was said by the previous panelists. I couldn't but agree with them. I am totally in favor of positive thinking. I totally believe in the good in people. Of course, one of the traits of a true optimist is to be flexible. And one of the things I usually teach people when I talk about optimism coaching is, first, the true optimist is not the person who's smiling idiotically like this all day long saying, how happy I am, how happy I am. That's not optimism. That's idiocy. I'm sorry. The real optimist is the person who looks life in the eye and ponders on the possibilities to overcome the obstacles in front of him. So the real optimist is the person who sees the obstacle and says, how can I overcome it? And they try one way, and if they can't, they try another way, and if they can't, they try a third way, and so on. So perseverance and being persevering and insisting and never giving up is the #1 trait of a true optimist. As a result of that, because the true optimist never gives up, the true optimist will continue trying one method, another one, and then will accumulate many more resources than the pessimist who already gave up at the first attempt. As a result of which, the optimist will also be much more flexible, as Larry was mentioning a few minutes ago, because they will have to learn different ways and different techniques to overcome their obstacles. As a result, this is all accumulative in life, okay? As a result, the person who's a true optimist will accumulate resources, flexibility, and creativity, because if something doesn't work, they'll think about it, they'll ponder about it, and they'll try different things to try and find the solution. So I would say that the last important item in this melting pot of optimists is knowing themselves. Why? Because you can be very creative, you can be very resourceful, but unless you know what you have in you, unless you truly know yourself, you will not know what resources, what skills, what abilities you have in yourself to really tackle that obstacle. So a true optimist does a lot of introspection, knows him or herself very well, and uses all those resources by persevering and never giving up to really get where they want to get. There's one more ingredient that Simmy, Dr. Kataria also mentioned, that distinguishes the true optimist from the pessimist, and that is hope. I always say that the true optimist is a person that combines resilience, being resilient, and hope. Because the resilient person is the person that falls and gets up again and stands again. But that doesn't mean they're going to go any further. The real optimist is the person who stands up again, like Larry did his whole life, but furthermore, looks ahead, has hope, and continues thriving. So that's my answer. I hope I added a little bit of, food for thought. Thank you, James.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you for popping with your answer. Wonderful. So let's move on to the second question of today's human conversations. The second question that we've got today is, thriving means a lot more than surviving. What do you think would make a person thrive instead of just surviving nowadays? Dr. Sydney Kataria, if you could please answer the question.
A great question yet again. I have a couple of things put down, what really makes us thrive versus survive. Again, it comes down to optimism. We have to have a state of optimism no matter what we are going through. Like we are in COVID times, and we are making the best of this situation by being, online and communicating online. So optimism, motivation to get things done is the second thing, which I would like to say. You're motivating yourself to go beyond and above the call to duty, to push the envelope. That's motivation. That comes again from yourself. Proactivity. To thrive, you have to be proactive, to really, really think above and beyond before the problem occurs. For example, how did Jessica really solve this problem right now? She shared the screen. So that was her option of getting everybody on the same page today. So basically thinking on your feet and being proactive despite the challenges. The other is enjoying learning. Being a lifelong learner is very important to thrive versus survive. Because you can see a lot of things in a bigger picture as well as minute details. The last but not least is flexibility and adaptability. We have to be adaptable. We have to be flexible in our times. We cannot be fixed. We have got to have a growth mindset. We have to have a flexible, versatile mindset like we have right now in the COVID times. If we were stuck in our thought process that I cannot perform, then we will not perform. But we are utilizing, optimizing all our facilities, all our merits out there, technology, etc., given to us to really thrive and make the best of the situation. So that's what I would like to say. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simmy. Thank you for that answer. Yes, it's true. We all have to be a little bit flexible. In fact, we have a wonderful example today of just that. We had to be flexible with our solutions for our human conversation. So thank you. Same question for Kumar.
Yeah, thanks, James. I would like to step back a little bit here. Why are we discussing about thriving? Because we are now faced with a condition which none of us really prepared for. I mean, a pandemic is upon us and I mean, virtually the whole world is in the grip of that pandemic. And we're talking about surviving, we're talking about thriving. So I would like to step back and, look at why did we even end up in this situation? We were thriving. I mean, the global economy was growing. At least the macro indicators all said that people were thriving. Maybe at an individual level, people were not, but macro indicators said that as a group, as a collective, the human race was thriving. But if you step back and you see that the basic ingredient which was missing in all this was harmony. We were developing out of sync with nature. We were developing with the quote-unquote thrivers were looking at self-interest before group interest. And that was one of the reasons why we have exacerbated a situation to this stage where now the entire world is paying the price for this. So how do we build an ecosystem which will ensure that everyone is a thriver? We're not looking at just a handful of thrivers, but everyone is a thriver. So my take on that would be that in this situation, whatever your position is, whether it's as an individual, whether it's as a part of an organization, whether it's as part of the community, or whether it is as part of the nation, countries interacting with other countries. First thing that you do is look for your stakeholders. Which are the entities that have a stake in what it is that you're trying to achieve? Once you have understood your stakeholders, try to also understand what are their aspirations. Why are they a stakeholder in this exercise? Once you have understood the aspirations, you've mapped the aspirations, ensure that the aspirations of all the stakeholders are being satisfied simultaneously. It does not mean that one set gets precedence over the other. you have to ensure that all of the stakeholders are simultaneously satisfied. And that is the only way you can achieve a harmony in the system. One of the most important stakeholders in this paradigm is the nature or environment. We have violated nature so badly that today we are paying a very heavy price. And the sad fact is, we are not ready to accept that we are in the grip of a climate change. I mean, we still try to treat science as a hoax. And there are contrasting viewpoints from all across the world who pick up that one outlier point and use that to buttress their argument, saying that climate change is not happening. I mean, you see unseasonal rains. You see huge forest fires in different parts of the world. All that is because we've abused nature. And nature fights back the only way it can. I mean, this year, you're in Panama, and you probably are already hearing about the 5th hurricane already being named, or 7th, for this Atlantic season, and this is way before it ever happened in history. So nature is just trying to cool down the way it can, and that is by fighting back. So what I say is, if you want to thrive, and if we have to thrive as a collective, let's ensure that we establish this harmony in the shortest possible time. And that comes back to what I said earlier. Control your greed. Be happy with needs. Don't run after your desires. And don't make it a mantra that I have to succeed at any cost. The minute you are able to do that, you will realize that as a world, all of us will be thrivers. And we will no longer be categorizing people as thrivers and survivors. Over to you, James.
Thank you so much, Kumar, for that answer. Again, I'm in awe with how powerful those words are. I will definitely be applying that myself. So thank you. Same question, Larry. Oh, there we go.
There I am. I wanted to begin by accusing you all of staging the beginning, because it was a perfect example of flexibility. Knowing that you didn't, however, I'll just make a joke out of it. But it has certainly it awakened us to the brilliance of your ability to move flexibly. I have a slightly different perspective on this surviving versus thriving business. Having spent most of my life into myself, my ego through these Great Depressions, I've come to think of surviving as a very individual thing. I think of the billions of people in the world whose days amount to simply surviving, finding some means of subsistence to get through. But those of us that participating, probably even watching, are also often merely surviving, in that we looking out for ourselves first and allowing our egos to regulate and rule what we are doing. To me, the thrivers are the ones that are able to go beyond themselves and see themselves in a social context as part of the whole rather than as the whole itself. I even contrived a term I used to use, and that is a socio-ego, in that we think of others first, or at least that's the context in which we think. I'm reminded of my great-grandchildren, tiny little tykes that they are, their world is their family, especially their mother who provides sustenance. Uh, I just can't imagine that they have a sense of themselves, but rather as a part of their father, mother, and brothers and sisters. I'm sorry that we lose that sense of being a part of a group rather than get centered in ourselves. And that's the thing that troubles me greatly about the social isolation that we're going through. Now, I've been pretty much socially isolated for some time through my disability. This is not a new normal for me. But I understand that as people have had to isolate because of the pandemic, it's caused many of them to begin thinking only of themselves. We saw a horrible hoarding at the beginning, and some of it still exists here in America, of people desperate to get some rare commodities and to stockpile them when others were without. And some of these, like the cleaning products and whatnot, were rather necessary for this situation. Hoarding is not an example of a socio-ego at work. That to me is what is going to enable us to thrive, and it's in a different way of expression. It's what the others have also said. We've got to realize that we are brothers and sisters on the earth together, in the words of the American poet Archibald MacLeish. He wrote those words after man walked on the moon and looked up into the sky and saw the earth as a beautiful, tiny blue marble. He saw us as being one together as a whole, and not just the universe centered on ourselves. I love that poem that he wrote. Riders on the Earth Together was the name of it. I won't talk too much longer, but I wrote down something else about, going back to what I said earlier about planning and preparing to be flexible. My favorite American cartoonist is Bill Keane. He writes a cartoon called The Family Circus and takes his creativity took his creativity from his own family. He said, now, tomorrow is the future, but today is a gift. And that's why we call it the present. Well, I have taken that to mean that right now is the gift that we have. The future depends a lot on what we are going to do right now in what I think of as a kind of eternal presence in my seniority. The present is indeed a gift. And the older you get, the more you realize that it's a very precious thing to have. Tomorrow is unknown. In this pandemic, we can imagine all sorts of negative things coming out of it. But you know, as Dr. Kumar mentioned a second ago, if we treat this right as an adjustment period and see how we have contributed to this situation, we could well come out of this in far better shape globally than we have gone into it. No, the economy may suffer a bit and whatnot, but if we will look out for each other, and those of us that have share with those that do not right now, we're not only going to get through this, but we are going to become part of a great brother and sisterhood that can well do wonders in the future on this planet that we have tried our best to destroy. I'm getting ready to get wound up here, so I'd best give it back to James. I have a tendency to do that, as my students could attest. But thank you for your wonderful ideas. They are certainly rich. James.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Larry. Thank you for that answer. I will be checking out that poem later after this Human Conversations. So thank you for that. Jessica, same question. Pop back in.
Hello. Hi. Okay, I was listening carefully to everything that everybody said. I once again agree with everyone. This made me think about what it is that we're actually discussing. Are we discussing the thriving of us versus the thriving of me? Or are we discussing the thriving of me versus the thriving of us? Why are we talking about what thriving means for me, for you, for everybody? The first thing we should therefore ask ourselves is, what does thriving mean to me? Because unless I know what it means to me, I won't be able to answer that question. Is it the thriving of us versus me, or is it the thriving of me versus us? Let's decide, each of us, inside of us, what thriving actually means and what it entails. Because we talk about thriving, we talk about surviving, we talk about being positive, we talk about being optimistic, but those things mean totally, completely different concepts to each human being. So if we're talking about thriving in an individual way, if we're talking about thriving individually, what does it mean? What do I want to get? What am I getting? What is it that I am pursuing? What am I going to gain by thriving? When we talk about thriving, be it as myself or be it as a community, I would go back to something that Dr. Kataria, Simmy, said. She said that the mindset is fundamental. And I would agree with that. I totally believe the mindset is fundamental in this concept of thriving, because to some, thriving is a synonym for surviving. To those who have a victim mindset, thriving could just be a synonym for surviving. Those who have a winner mindset might find that thriving means going much more farther than just surviving. And as society, as Kumar, Dr. Iyer was saying, what is it that we want to achieve? Do we want to have a global victims mindset, or do we want to have a global winners mindset? Do we want society to be the victim of these circumstances, or do we want our society to be ahead and to have that winner's mentality where we're going to go get everything, including the saving of our planet, thus the saving of ourselves? I would add one more thing to this, which is, well, first understand what thriving means to you. Is it individual? Is it global? Then ask yourself what it is that you're going to gain by thriving. Ask yourself what kind of mentality you have. And then, do you need any help to get there? We talk about thriving, and we've been talking about personal values, personal skills. Larry was also mentioning, how people tend to thrive. I would also say there's a lot of people who are not thriving because they're afraid or they refuse to ask for help. We have this mentality, very widespread mentality of competition. We have to compete once against the others, and that makes it very hard for society to thrive as a whole. In that case, it's just the thriving of the self, it's just the thriving of the me, not the thriving of the us. We have been taught to not ask for help. In many of our societies, we've been told that asking for help is a display of weakness, and that human beings should be very strong no matter what, that we should all be winners, that we should all strive to be the best at everything. Therefore, asking for help would betray a weakness in us. And this general mentality of competition, I think, completely destroys the thriving of us. Because if we're competing ones against the others, there's no thriving of us. There's only the thriving of me. So analyzing it from this perspective, I once again ask you the same questions. What does thriving mean to you? What do you gain by thriving? Remember this competition mentality? And then, are you a victim or are you a winner? Because that will give you the key to the type of thriving you want to reach. I don't know if I really answered the question. I think I posed more questions, but I also like to give people a little food for thought. James, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that answer. Yes, you're totally right. In fact, I'm actually going to apply that just now, and I'm going to ask our audience for help. If you are interested in today's topic, if you think that this can help others, please, I'm asking you for help in sharing our message with the rest of the world. Please share this wonderful roundtable discussion with the people that you have on Facebook. You never know who it could benefit, who it could help, who it can save. No one ever knows. So I ask you, person that's listening to us right now, please help us spread this important message across the world. Thank you. Okay, now let's move on to the third question. The third question that we've got for today is, thriving as a human being is not the same as thriving professionally. Would you suggest any specific tools for professionals to thrive at what they do? What should they do? What should they not do? Or what could they actually do? Simmy, please, if you could answer the question.
I'll go back to what Jessica said. It's about what is thriving to you as an individual. We come back to, is it, professional thriving or is it personal thriving? What really makes you thrive? I mean, for example, if I'm a student, and for me to get 100% is thriving for me. So that's individualistic. So having said that, I go back to what Jessica says, that, thriving personally and professionally are truly intermingled, because we are professional selves. Our personal self is a professional self. So I don't think I can really separate the two, but at the same time, I can say, what does it take to personally thrive? Again, we go back to the same thing, is having a positive perspective, is also spirituality and religion that you practice. For example, Christianity or any religion that practices talks about being good for others. So that also is, in some ways, personal and professional thriving, because it talks about team building, it talks about a good corporate citizenship. So that again, I go back to the second thing which I'm talking about also is, what do we really as spiritual human beings believe as thriving or surviving? Then we go down to, what kind of a personality do we belong to? What is our personality? Are we about seeking? Are we about learning? Are we about making a difference? What are we as individuals? What is motivational? What is motivating us as people? So that is also a personal question, and I would combine it from a personal as well as a professional point of view, because I do see people professionally and personally to get very, what you are professionally is really what you really develop yourself as a personal person too. The other thing is, your motivation, your character strengths. How are you really building yourself up in terms of, are you a lifelong learner? I come back to the same thing. What are we as individuals? What are we really thriving for? And the motivation towards thriving. That's the fourth thing that I would say would be, a difference between professional and personal thriving. What is it that makes us, thrive? For what is our motivation for thriving? So the four things that I talked about, the first was really about the positive perspective. What is it thriving for us, as Jessica said? Is it a personal thrive, professional thrive? How do we intermingle the two? The first thing I talk about. Then about our religion and our spirituality, because we are spiritual human beings. What does our spiritual practice talk about? Usually all our spiritual and religious practice talks about being good, doing good to others, optimizing yourself, etc., etc. And then our proactive personality is the other thing I talked about. How do we go out there and be there? What do we do to ourselves to be proactive? The fourth thing I talked about is the motivation to get there. What really motivates us to thrive versus survive? Thank you. Over to you, James.
Thank you, Simmy, for the answer. I hadn't thought of it that way, of us being spiritual and applying that in our professional world. So thank you for that. Kumar, same question.
Yeah. Again, I go back to what we discussed in the previous question. Is it an I thrive or we thrive? That is the most about harmony. Again, I said it was about we thriving rather than me thriving. So when you come to a professional environment, today's society, today's workplace calls for working in teams. I mean, gone are the times when we had individuals working as individuals for the development of the organization. Now, almost all exercises are a team effort. So the first thing, and again, this I hark back to what Jessica mentioned. We're not in this as a race. I mean, if I thrive and the rest of humanity doesn't thrive, I have not won a race. So when you're in a team, the most important thing that you should have to thrive is empathy. Try and understand where the others are coming from. How can you make life easier for them so that together as a collective you thrive? So that's what a professional should have in his psyche to thrive. Certain personal examples which he can, or he or she can put forth to inspire others to thrive would be, first is leading by example, or what they say, walk the talk. You know, it's all very nice for me to come here and throw out all these big fundas, so to speak, and then I go back and I don't practice a single word of what I preach. I mean, I'm not going to be inspiring people to thrive. I'm not going to create a platform where people would want to listen, people would want to follow, or people would want to be a part of what it is that I am trying to achieve. So be honest to yourself, walk the talk, and lead by example. The second thing, and this again comes back to the harmony aspect, is trust people. Trust more. Today we are in a society where if someone comes forward to help you, the first thing you do is there an ulterior motive? Why is he coming to help me? What does he want in exchange? So we've become so cynical about everything that if someone actually lends you a hand, a helping hand, before grabbing it, even while you're drowning, you think about the consequences of what will happen once he pulls you out. I mean, this is not what is a thriving mentality. Get suspicion out of your thought process. Learn to trust people more. Learn to trust your teams more. If you are a leader as part of a team, empower your teams. Let them, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? They may make mistakes, but they will learn from those mistakes. And when they see you allowing them to make mistakes, they become more cohesive with your team. Rather than if you don't allow them to grow as individuals, they're always going to wallow in the survivor mentality rather than the thriver mentality. And finally, the third thing which I would say is rise above biases. We're living in a biased world. We have an opinion and we have an idea, rightly or wrongly, about every topic under the sun. Learn to accept the other person for what he or she is. Don't be judgmental. As I mentioned in one of the earlier questions, look for the good in people and build on that good. Rise above your biases and you will see the group thriving. And finally, don't expect the other person to take the first step. If you truly believe that you want to thrive, if you truly believe that you want to build a tribe of thrivers, take the first step yourself. Show that you mean what you're saying, and you will be surprised that the other side, for every step that you take, they come forward 100 steps. And your team is built up much more quickly rather than if you just waited for someone to come and join you. Put out the invitation and you will see that your tribe grows day and night. Thank you. Over to you, James.
Thank you so much, Kumar. Those were wonderful tips. Thank you very much. Larry, same question. Oh, 1 second. I believe that we have to unmute you. There we go. Perfect.
I'm live now. I would like to begin with a quote from my favorite American philosopher of all times. His name was Fred Rogers, and most of you may not have heard of Mr. Rogers. He had a children's program on public television for many, many years, and to me was not only a brilliant man, but a very spiritual man as well. He liked to talk directly to the children, and this is one of my favorite quotes of his that I hope is going to relate to the answer. When I say it's you I like, I'm talking about that part of you that knows that life is far more than anything that you can see or hear or touch. That deep part of you that allows you to stand for those things without which humankind cannot survive. Love that conquers hate, peace that rises triumphant over war, and justice that proves more powerful than greed. I think if we hold those qualities, if our professionals, if we as individuals can reach down and grasp those qualities in our lives and then project them, I think that's very much what the thriving for the world will be like. I'm always astonished by how Mr. Rogers could get right to the to the heart of things. I wrote down a couple of things as the others were sharing such erudite ideas. One is, again, getting back to the fact that we've got to nurture our socio-ego, the leader, the professional who does not have those he serves in mind, those who are supporting him in mind, is going to fail. His own success may thrive, I suppose, but the success of his mission will fail. Doctor talked about learning, lifelong learning. Oh my goodness, where would I be without the capacity to continue to learn? Unfortunately, I've been surrounded most of my career by a kind of learned helplessness. Rather than striving to learn new things, we have been taught to learn to have somebody else do it for us, or to provide the answers for us, rather than to seek them out ourselves. Living in front of a computer, as I do now, I have found research to be very fulfilling, but it's something that I have to do myself. And then for it to have value, and I discover this happens every time I discover something new, if I can't share it with somebody else, if I can't share it with somebody else so that they can comment on it and either validate what I found or shoot it down, then it is not fulfilling. I don't thrive. We've got to constantly be learning. And as far as the spiritual component is concerned, I have a very unique spirituality. I come from a family of very fundamentalist, conservative minds. I've learned to respect their positions, but I have found that I am quite often on the opposite pole from their beliefs and their adjustments, until I came to realize that if we kind of scrape back all of the religion, all of the philosophy, all of the technical aspects of spirituality, that we all sort of believe the same thing, only different. I can live with that now, and it has helped so much to gain the respect and the ear of others when they realize that while I disagree with them, sometimes vehemently, I can sort through what they're saying, and down to the core, I see the love and the peace and the brother and the sharing, if you will. So what the doctor said so beautifully, so clearly, is that we've got to be able to communicate with each other. We've got to be able to stay fresh and to constantly be learning and to accept. And then finally, and my goodness, we've got to leave a lighter footprint on the planet. I have been for years part of our local nature reserve. It's part of the Missouri Botanical Garden program. And our director, Dr. Peter Wise Jackson, is an international authority and spokesperson for sustainability. I don't know if you're acquainted with Dr. Wise Jackson, Kumar, but his message is a remarkable one, that in the so-called first world, we have exploited the planet to the degree where there is not very much left, and what is left is being divided among larger and larger numbers. The answer is what we're doing in our nature reserve, and this is for professionals in any area. don't try to succeed in your mission if the cost to the globe is greater than we can afford. And let's not only work for sustainability, but let's lighten that footprint. Let's do less damage, physically less damage, and learn to not only live, but here are my other words, learn to be content with the necessities that we need, and not strive for what you referred to as our desires all the time. Contentment has come to mean everything to me. And I also realize that I've got to be accepting. I've got to accept my situation. I've got to understand that I'm not going to leave my yard again in all likelihood. I'm not going to physically get to hug my friends and my family. But I can in my heart, and I can as I communicate with them. And we have got to stay in touch, close touch. We've got to tie our hearts together and not just communicate with our voices and with our words, and become one humanity and not all these little tiny pieces striving to get the others out of the way. There's a wonderful concept of humanity as a whole, both in terms of the now, the present that I live in, and the future in which what I leave is going to be a part of. I'm wondering again, I'm more and more being able to recognize that, but I appreciate what the panel has strived to say, and I firmly believe that we are on the same page. Our challenge is indeed to make this more widely known, and to inspire the discussion beyond the 5 or 6 of us. Well, that's okay for now, James.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you for that answer. You actually reminded me of Mr. Rogers. I used to love that as a kid. So thank you for reminding me of that. I welcome our audience to check this person out, actually, because they do share a message of exactly what Larry said, of sharing and accepting. So thank you for that answer. Thank you. Jessica, same question.
Okay, the first thing I want to do in my answer now, the little time I've been allotted, is to send you all a big hug. Thank you, Larry, for that reminder. I want to send everybody a big hug because, yes, we are connected as human beings, and there's no other way around. We're social beings. And as such, we are part of this planet, and we need to bear that in mind. We are all connected. And that brings me to the part of my answer that might differ a little bit from what everybody else has been saying, although I fully, totally agree with the answers all the 3 panelists very wisely gave us today. I would like to say that in order for a person to thrive, either personally or professionally, the person first has to accept reality. I mean, reality is, there's a virus out there. So that is reality. How I approach it, how I interpret it, and what I do about it is what is in my power. So in the professional sphere, I think that each human being has to accept who they are, where they are, and what it is that they are doing. Because as explained by Humanology, every person in the world has 5 basic needs to fulfill to feel happy and okay. Those 5 basic needs are not being sheltered or being fed. We're talking more about human needs. In Humanology, we explain that all human beings have 5 different needs that need to be fulfilled at all times in life if we're going to feel okay. And those may vary in time. Sometimes one of those needs is more pressing. At other times that might change and we feel that one is fulfilled and we need some more of something else. But we all have those 5 needs throughout life. And not fulfilling one of those needs makes us feel empty inside and leads to great discomfort and even sickness. Those 5 needs are safety. We all human beings need to feel safe, secure, safe, name it. Some people try to fulfill this need some ways. Other people try to fulfill that need some other ways. We all need, second need, we all need to feel a certain adventure in our lives. We all need a little excitement. We all need a little surprise, because when we know it all, when there's nothing that can surprise us, we just turn off, we switch off. So we all need that little emotion in our lives. The third one. Yes, Larry, we all need that love. We all need to love and be loved. We need love throughout our whole lives. And the love, again, can be any kind of love. As little children, we need the love of our parents and siblings. Maybe at your age, Larry, you need the love of your grandchildren. Maybe my teenage children need some other kind of love, but we all need love. The fourth need that we all have, all human beings have it, is the need to feel that what we do matters. I call that contribution. Every human being needs to feel that what they do actually matters, that they're contributing something, that there's a certain legacy in what they do, that they're doing some good somehow. And to some people, that means a lot. Can you imagine, I don't know, people like Bill Gates not feeling that need to contribute? They're contributing all the time because they have that need to give. Some other people feel satisfied just by helping their neighbors or their immediate family, and that is okay. And the last of the 5 needs that all human beings have is we all need to feel like we're growing all the time. Growth is the 5th need. Whenever a person feels like there's nothing else to learn, be it physical, spiritual, intellectual, whatever kind of learning, when they feel there's nothing else to learn, they die. And they die physically or psychologically. They have a stroke, they have Alzheimer's, whatever. When people don't feel the need to grow one way or another, that's the end for them. So all human beings have these 5 basic needs. Thriving means having them fulfilled and feeling like you have them fulfilled. So in our constant strive to live, human beings need to feel like they're constantly fulfilling those 5 needs. Now, we've been talking about the difference between thriving personally and thriving professionally. Apply these 5 basic needs in both spheres. What does it mean for me to feel safe at work? What does it mean for me to feel safe at home? What does it mean for me to feel like I'm growing at work, like I'm growing at home? Those 5 basic needs are like the acceptance level that we need to have in order to feel like we're thriving. They're like the measuring rod that we can use to feel whether we're thriving or not. When one of those 5 basic needs is not being fulfilled, we are not thriving. We can only thrive, actually, truly, profoundly thrive, when those 5 basic needs are fulfilled. And some people try to fulfill some of the needs by focusing on another one. Let me give you an example, one that will clarify this concept very easily. A lot of people try to find love. They feel underloved. And in order to go about finding love, they sometimes try to be greater contributors. For example, they say, okay, I'm going to go to the home for the elderly, and I'm going to be with them, and I'm going to keep them company, and I'm going to care for them because like that I feel loved. No, you won't. Your feeling of contribution will be fulfilled, but you won't feel loved necessarily. So that emptiness in you will continue growing, and you will not understand why, and you'll feel horrible about yourself. So be careful. Bear in mind that those 5 basic needs have to be fulfilled at all times if you really want to feel like you're thriving. Well, this is my little tip, my little idea for how to feel like we're thriving personally or professionally. Off to you, James.
Thank you so much for that answer. Yes, those 5 basic needs are crucial to every person's well-being and just enjoyment overall of their life. So thank you for that answer. That actually concludes the section of prepared questions that we had for today's wonderful panelists. So let's move on to the question section from our public. Are you guys excited as much as I am? Okay, so the first question that we have is, the economy is doomed in the nearby future. A lot of jobs will be lost. Yes. How can we thrive when we first need to survive? That's a good question. Anybody who would like to answer, please just go ahead. We're gonna open up the microphones so like that anybody who would like to answer can just answer. Oh, yes.
The word economy troubles me because I do believe that the old economy is not likely to return as we knew it. I don't find that negative. I see some real positive possibilities in this opportunity to revise an economy that to me has been rather devastating, actually. I have great trouble with an economy that is based on unearned wealth, for example. I have trouble with an economy that's based on the exploitation of labor or resources or whatever it might be. So I don't see it as negative. I think the changes that need to come could be very positive. And I prefer to look at it in that light. Again, I'm not as impacted as others would be, but that would be my take on it. No, I don't think we'll see a return to the old economy. I hope not.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you for that answer. Anybody else would like to answer?
Okay, may I answer?
Of course, you
Okay,
don't need to ask.
The question is, how could we thrive when we first need to survive? I would recommend the person who asked that question to go back to something we said before. What does thriving mean to you? How do you feel like you're really actually thriving? What is your threshold? How do you measure thrive? Another little tiny tool that we use in Humanology is we identify the mental rules that we have for things. And how do we go about this? Well, it's very simple. We take a piece of paper and a pen, and we finish a sentence. And we finish the sentence with as many endings as we can come up with. And in this case, the sentence would be, I know I'm thriving when. I know I'm thriving when. So when you answer that, or when you finish that sentence, for example, I know I'm thriving when my boss congratulates me. I know I'm thriving when, and you write a whole bunch of sentences. If you only have 3 or 4 sentences, 3 or 4 endings, you will barely ever feel like you're thriving, because your brain will not recognize that the reality around you is telling you that you're thriving. That's why we call them the mind rules. You are already telling your mind to look for some signal, telltale signs that you are thriving. And only those will give you the feeling of thriving. So if you have very few rules, I would recommend that you increase them, that you expand those rules. Instead of 5, that will give you 5 chances to feel like you're thriving, have 50 rules. Okay, I will now then also feel like I'm thriving whenever somebody goes like this to me. Then I'll feel like I'm thriving because I'm doing great. When you start writing those new rules for yourself, you need first to be aware of them. Whenever that happens, you have to be aware of it. Ah, that was what my rule. They went like that. Yeah, I'm thriving. And feel it and celebrate it, because like that, your emotion will underline that new belief in your mind much more strongly. So endow yourself with a long list of thriving rules so you can start really thriving and be aware of it. That's my answer.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for that answer. If anybody else would like to answer this question, please just go ahead. I think that we have all the answers for this question, so let's move on to the next. The next question that we have, they say, the thriving of us. I have a question for Dr. Iyer. Oh, there we go. Or for all the panelists. Okay, perfect. So, how can we thrive as a society when people are so evil? You say all people are good, but look at what's happening with COVID. So I guess Dr. Kumar Iyer, if you could please answer first.
Yeah.
Anybody else, if they want to?
Absolutely. That's a very good question. And you say there are evil people out there. Let me turn the question around and say, look, nobody is born evil. I mean, when you're a baby in your cradle, you have no conscious thought in your mind of what is good and what is evil. You pick up these signals as you grow, and they sort of shape the personality that you are. In spite of all this, there is always at least one redeeming feature in every person. As Jessica just said, if you make a list of, what means thriving for you, same way, if you make a list of what you call as positive attributes, you may find at least one good attribute in that person. Even in a person who you say is extremely evil, you will find maybe he is loyal to a cause. I mean, that is a very, very, very positive attribute to have. He's loyal to a cause. The cause may be evil, but he still exhibits a lot of loyalty. So work on the loyalty aspect. Take the evil out, replace it with good. It will take time. It's not easy. I mean, I don't have a magic wand. I snap my fingers. I'm not Thanos, I snap my fingers and I wipe out evil from the world. But the point is, if you are looking to thrive, if you believe that as a humanity we need to thrive, then you will have to take these steps to convert the evil to good. Look for the one positive, strengthen that one positive, and win over the person from the side of evil to the side of good. That is what thriving is all about. And that is what we mean by we thrive rather than I thrive. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Kumar. Thank you for that answer. That was very insightful. And I will be applying that today. So thank you. If anybody else would like to answer this question, please just go ahead. The floor is all of yours.
Well, I always have answers for everything.
Go for it. There you go.
Okay, I have an answer for this too. All right, one more thing we say in humanology is that human beings only act for two reasons. There's only two reasons moving human beings, only two. Every action a human being undertakes is either for one reason or the other, only two. And those reasons are, the first one, to avoid some kind of pain, and the second one, to obtain some kind of pleasure. So when a person does something, that person is moved by either wish, to either avoid some kind of pain, and by pain we mean all kinds of negative things, perceived negative things, because what is bad for one person might be great for another person, but in that person's mind, you know, I'm going to do this so I won't be insulted by others. That is avoiding some pain. I will do this so as to whatever. Or the opposite, they're doing it to obtain some kind of pleasure. I'm going to do this because I want to be seen by others. I'm going to do this because I'm going to gain some money. I'm going to do this. So when we really actually analyze human actions like this, we realize that nobody is acting to hurt anybody else. Ever. Ever. There's always an ultimate reason why they're acting. And I'm going to use a horrible, terrible example to clarify this, okay? Imagine a situation of rape. The rapist is raping the victim because he or she wants to obtain some pleasure. Maybe the victim, the rapist obtains the pleasure by hurting somebody, but in that case, the person being raped is just a vehicle. It's not the real ultimate goal. The goal is to obtain that pleasure. So in that case, what is moving the rapist is to obtain that pleasure. When we see things like this, we realize that the person is not really actually raping the other person to hurt that one person. Because if that were so, rapists would only rape one person, and then they wouldn't have that urge anymore. And that doesn't happen. They are raping that person because they need to satisfy their desire, their passion. And in that sense, every human being acts for one of those two reasons. So this person who's saying, well, people are evil, I would ask that person to reconsider and to analyze what the evil people are trying to get through their actions. What kind of pain are they trying to avoid? What kind of pleasure are they trying to get?
They're trying to get.
Yeah, and they might be using others to get that pleasure or to avoid that pain, yes. But the ultimate goal is not using or abusing the people, but what they're getting out of that. And in that sense, well, if you start analyzing people's actions this way, your view of them, your view of the world might vary a little tiny bit. That's my answer.
True.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for that answer. I see that we're running out of time, so if anybody else would like to answer this question, please go ahead, and if not, we will move on to the final words of our wonderful human conversations. If anybody wants to, just go ahead, and if not, I will move on. So, like I said, if you want to answer, please just go for it. Okay, perfect. So then let's move on to ending this human conversations, this edition. I first of all would like to thank all of our wonderful panelists for being here with us today and taking the time to, you know, actually answer our questions and have a chat with us and with our audience. I would also like to thank the audience for being here with us today and giving us all of these wonderful questions and just sharing this experience with us. And I just want to remind everyone that within the International Institute of Humanology, like we said at the beginning, we have these wonderful human talks once every 2 weeks, on Fridays, once in English, one in Spanish. If you speak both languages, please tune into both, because we always try to have as many different topics as we possibly can. We try to listen to you and what your needs are, and we try to provide that for you. So, like I said, please do tune in. And if you have any topics that you are interested in having some experts talk about, do get in touch with us, because we're always up for recommendations. Like we said in this talk, we can ask for help. So please message us, talk to us. Let's have a conversation. Thank you so much to everyone for being here with us today.
Thank you, James.
Thank you. Thank you, James.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
See you
you.
next week at the next Human Conversations in Spanish, and then
yes.
2 weeks from now for the next Human Conversations. Wow, topic. The next topic, sorry.
True.
2 weeks from now in English, we're going to be having art to the rescue. We're going to have 4 experts talking about art and how it helps human beings. Let me just tell you that we're going to have some very well-known people among the panelists, including a famous TV script writer from Hollywood. I will just leave it at that. Thank you for being here. See you at the Institute.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.